Mo.
Who's Mo?
The guy walking in.
Oh.
Him and Kyle Baker started a team.
Oh.
Fun.
Oh.
Okay.
When you guys snort laughing.
Okay, we're on, I think.
Oh, I just popped my back. Hold on.
Yeah, I can hear that. That's L4 and L3.
Yeah, dude.
That felt real
That's
good.
scoliosis, man.
Listen.
I can diagnose you just.
Pop your neck. What?
That's like just.
That's disgusting. She's gross. All right.
Anyways, we starting up?
Yeah.
Nobody else wants an energy soda? All right. Don't mind if I do. Welcome back to Indy Housing Market. I'm Kyle Morris with Morris Property Group and FC Tucker.
I'm Shelly Walters with FC Tucker and the Shelly Walters Realty Group.
And today we have a special guest. We have Brad on here. I'm going to let him, Brad Coffing, correct? I'm going to let him say his title because it was complex in nature and I don't want to mess it up.
Not even going to try? Give it a shot.
I got it. Director of Housing Insights.
Oh, there you go.
She wrote it down for the record.
So the thing about that is why we have Brad here is he is on the board with Mibor, on the Mibor board, I should
Staff.
say. Staff.
Yep.
Well,
Staff of
I
Mibor.
call it, yeah.
And we kind of want to go over last year's numbers, projections for this next year. I mean, we tend to do a lot of stats for, I don't know, northern Indy and then the northern suburbs as well. And so, I mean, just because we're limited within our capacity of time, we don't want to make a 4-hour podcast for goodness sake. But it's nice to have you on here because you're going to cover all the counties, all the Mibor counties, and it helps give like a little bit broader strokes. And then it also allows us to show difference between like what we're doing, what you do. Because one of the things that we talk about a lot is the numbers and how they're disseminated through the media and then the narrative written around that data point, right?
That
And-
we see is
Right.
way off compared to what we are seeing. And
But-
so Brad is here to kind of give us the insight that you see directly from the stats coming in from all sales all day long, every day, all year. So the Director of Housing Insights is exactly what we're wanting to hear.
Right, we want to hear insights. So it's because the data's not wrong. I mean, we had you on the other podcast like 2 years ago when we were talking about some of the differences in our numbers and why they were being created. But the data's usually correct. The narrative is technically wrong most of the time when I read the article. So like somebody's just sent me 4 days ago an article saying about how sales are down, right? And he's like, are you worried about this? It's like, this is a volume number based on inventory. That's what this article is about. But when you read it, it's like sales are down. I think the average consumer consumes that in a sense of turning it into sales price, I guess, if that makes sense. That's what people think. When they think sales are down, people tend to think price. I don't think everybody thinks volume.
Right.
And so like that's the kind of stuff that we deal with and we're out there front facing dealing with this stuff, and then you're over here on the back end, or I would say a lot of what you do tends to be involved with local governments, communities, et cetera, helping with economic development and all these other things, which you can get into that. And it's like, how do you, because they are getting that information, and then they're bringing it to you when you're sitting there trying to give them projections, timelines, what the our community is going to look like in the next 2-5 years based off of the data points that you have, right?
And it's super loud. Like if you go on Twitter or X or whatever,
Meta or whatever they are,
Meta, whatever it's called, you can find any story out there, and they absolutely drive me bonkers because you'll get someone that's like, prices down 20%, blah 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 blah. You're like, okay, Scottsdale, Arizona. Okay, well, then say this is the market that we're talking.
Well, that's the problem with the national news or even the Indianapolis news. They'll pull off of the national news. I mean, they pull off the national news from wherever it came from and leave off that and just say sales are down 20%. but they don't even state where they got theirs. It's more of about the sensationalism of media. I mean, that's my background. That's what I went to college for. Is you want to write something to make sure that everybody listens and pays attention to you. So
It does. Well, because nobody
and that
wants
doesn't help us.
Yeah,
nobody
people
wants to
also
read the
say-
article that says everything's okay,
Everything's great.
steady
Yep.
state. You know.
Right. And it's not that those stories aren't true within the context.
Correct,
right?
they
And
are.
It's not that they're not important either, because I think of the Indy region as, if you think about when you throw a rock into a pond and you see, how the water moves out, the ripples.
Mm-hmm.
We're never the first one.
No.
And, so as you look at what's happening across the country, you can look at the markets that are always those first rings, and you can see how things move. And if things stay on course, inevitably, at some point, it's going to get to us, right? So it's kind of always important to have that as, I'm watching this. This isn't us right now, but what's going on here and what's driving that? And then you start getting to kind of the next ring. So now you're getting into like the Denver, the Nashvilles, even Nashville's a different one now, but you start getting into kind of, the areas that are a little bit bigger than us, as opposed to New York and Miami and Los Angeles and Seattle.
Yeah.
Like, those are just really different.
And I
beasts.
think that's what drives our business here and the market here, is because we saw that in 21, 22, 20, is those markets are first to be affected by everything, and they get worse, and we continue to stay steady, and I think we always are still steady. We never have that big dip or the big situation unless
In
it was
terms of
2008.
prices.
Yeah. And so we saw so many people moving from those markets
Yeah.
to here to get away from the bad issues because we were so steady. Or
What do you-
doing a lot better.
What do you think our sister city is in comparison, right? Because you say Denver, Nashville, totally different markets.
LA's different, New
you've
York's
got
different. Yeah.
a lot of tourism.
Columbus, Ohio?
Columbus, I hear.
Ohio,
Kansas City, I
Kansas
hear a
City.
lot. St. Louis, but St. Louis is bigger.
St. Louis is
And it's also a
different-
hub for
It's
transportation.
a weird one.
Yeah.
It's made up of like 100 different little things, and it's a mess. But
It is a mess.
Charlotte, Raleigh.
Oh, that's good. Raleigh, interesting. How big is
Yeah.
Raleigh? I mean, not that you know. but-
Raleigh's smaller,
Smaller,
but
yeah.
super competitive though, because if you look at kind of the jobs and the industries and kind of what they attract.
Mm-hmm.
So those are, I would say, definitely Columbus, Ohio is probably the mirror that we have.
Yeah, especially with proximity.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
and we
makes
just
sense.
look a lot alike.
Yeah. It's just interesting, because I'll be reading something in one of those articles and they'll be like, in Las Vegas alone, prices have dropped 10%. I'm like that's Vegas.
That's
like,
one of the markets that swings a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does.
yeah.
It does. Scottsdale,
Scottsdale,
Phoenix, a lot of those
Miami.
areas.
Yeah.
Because their market is driven differently. It's driven off of tourism. It's driven off of retirement. Whereas like here, people tend to buy or sell based off of jobs or life situations.
Yeah.
That's it. Right? That's generally what happens.
And a lot of people just come here because they hear so much. I mean, we have such national media talking about the best place to live in
Yeah.
the United States, Carmel, Fishers. Everybody's getting these kind of accolades.
Yep.
So when people are looking for quality of life, they come here. They don't necessarily look for quality of life to leave here and go to Vegas.
Right.
So we just have a really good drive for, it's a great place to live. The price of property is lower than most. So
But people love that that we're rated that, and they hate that their taxes are going up.
Right.
I don't understand it. Like, our taxes, we want to
Yeah.
keep it a secret. And I'm like,
There's a disconnect between those two for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's coming out in March, so everybody's going to see their new taxes in March. We're going to hear a whole round
Even-
of people complaining.
Well, even this past year, I mean, it really
Oh,
hit
it
too.
will.
Oh
So,
yeah, but it's
yeah.
funny to see because everybody loves how they live. What they have the opportunity here to go to. All the every
Right.
experience you can have in our area, and then they complain because we have to actually kind of pay for it in some way
Right.
to have this great quality of living.
And yet, property taxes here are still
Oh, my gosh.
considerably
Except-
lower
yeah.
than anywhere else
Chicago.
in the
Yeah,
country.
Chicago,
Texas
yeah.
or
People
something.
move here
Yeah.
from Chicago, and they're like,
Right.
"It's not 14,000 a year." So, what do you think you wanted to cover? What were your ahas that you wanted to get over?
So I
to us
I
today?
kind of split this a little bit because price wise, we are a very, very steady place, and I think that's why it is a really good place to live. It's a really good place to buy into as well. 2023 was a tough year though. 2020, 23 with rates changing, we started at mid-6, upper 6s, beginning of the year, and we got up to almost 8, cracked 8 in
historical
October.
rate changes.
And then back down
Over
to
time, like
mid-6s.
fast.
And even in 22, going from 3.5 to 6 very quickly in a matter of a couple of months. I mean, that's a really shocking, it's a big shock to, the marketplace.
Well, it keeps sellers in their homes, and I will say I'm one of those that I'm buying over building to just change my lifestyle, and I'm going from a 2.9 to a 7.
Yeah.
And that hurts.
Sure.
I don't know anybody wants to do that on purpose.
It's not enjoyable. Yeah. But you also bring up a really great point, though, too, is that there was a lot of doom and gloom, and people talk about the market being frozen, and, there's nobody's going to go into the marketplace right now, with the rates going from 2.9 to 6 and whatever else. But the underlying constant is that life goes on. Life continues. People move out of their parents' basement. People graduate college. People have
Get
kids.
married, have
People
another
want to
kid.
Mm-hmm.
downsize.
Unfortunate
People want to
things
Lose
as
a
well.
spouse or whatever it may be.
and those are the things that always go on day after day, and people have to adjust, and people make choices, and that's and that's not going to change. Right?
But and we talked about this a couple of years ago. So we were seeing a disproportionate influx of buying out of luxury or convenience. And historically, we have been a buying out of necessity.
Sure.
And so usually you'd get like, let's say 10 or 20% of the market was buying out of, convenience or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. Well, we just ate that up for the next 5 years because it was 80% of the market for 2 years, right?
Yeah, you pulled some in, yeah.
Right. So I just feel like we're getting back to what we are, except for, what the number is that you said we were down. I wonder how much of that would have been buying out of convenience, right? That is just was gone from 2 years
ago. If you average it out over the years, if you pretend like this global pandemic had never happened, right? And so if you look at 2023 and you just compare it on just the annual basis from 2022, closed sales were down about 18%, which is not a fun year, right? But if you look at the median sales price was still up on an annual basis of 3.5%.
Yeah.
So
appreciation's still a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that you're saying that as compared to 20 and 20, the 2 years before that, there people were talking about. Is that the comparison you're talking about?
So we're up 3.6 for the year
over
in comparison to but 2021 we saw like an 18% increase, right? And then we saw it again, right? And I think that
in
was
the beginning half of 22,
which is
we were still in the 8.
Completely weird.
8%,
not
9%
normal.
over. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So those are aberrations. I mean, those aren't unless we have some other global pandemic, which.
Right. Well, up 3.5 is better than down 3.5.
Exactly. And if you look at all 16 counties, only one county, I believe Morgan, was down like 0.4%. I think every other county was up by at least 1%.
Which is interesting because that's my old stomping grounds, and I actually think Morgan County will see a massive influx over the next 5 to 7 years with the highway being completed. Because of the cost of living in Indianapolis, it will be a commuter
it's pretty
city.
Down there
it will
too.
be 25 minutes into downtown. As soon as you get to the top of like Martinsville, it's just this beautiful view, and it'll be more affordable. And I think in the next 5 to 7 years, it's like look at Greenfield all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I mean, Brownsburg's always historically been really, really good, but
look at Bargersville.
Oh my gosh.
Center Grove. I mean, all of that. I mean, it just keeps going. And I think
does.
the pandemic made that happen. But now people are just realizing if they do live there, that it is a short.
It's
short
not 45 minutes to an hour into the city anymore.
Yeah, you're
like
20 minutes.
My dad's drive was like 50 minutes for like 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're probably right. I think that the interstate really introduces some interesting opportunities, but they also have to build.
Yes,
but they also
100%.
have to.
100%.
They also have to get product through and approved, and they have to have a plan to be able to do so. And so, if they're able to do that, then absolutely yes.
And to call it for what it is, they can make more money up here. a builder can. Like, I mean, it is a business. You know, they're not out here just providing housing to provide.
Yeah, margins are tough, and so they're going to go to where they can get product built.
Right, because I mean, just desirability alone. I mean, the price is going to go up.
And also
right?
time is money. So,
Yeah.
you know, if you're holding on to the lots that you want to build and it takes forever to get
Yeah.
projects through the pipeline,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you know, you're just taking on a risk.
It is, but I just think I really do think it will change. I think Anderson will too. Franklin
I agree
has
with you
had
on
a
that
big revitalization, and I think the more it gets connected,
Yep.
I just think we will become a much larger area than people anticipate.
Yeah, the metro area will be
Yeah.
becoming larger and larger.
Which is really kind of neat, quite honestly, because I think it will help Indianapolis in a variety of ways.
Yes.
But it will just help. People are going to complain about the costs, right, as the costs go up.
Mm-hmm.
But income will go up. And people don't think about that, right? They're like, it costs more. It's like, I don't know, what if you're making more? Does that still work, you know? And everything you have is nicer. It's hard. I mean, it's just a constant battle. I mean, it's just progress. It's forever going to be an issue. You know, I used to, when they were doing 65, a couple of years ago, I'd talk to my dad, and he'd have friends who were like, oh, they're going to hold out, you know, they're not going to sell. And I was like, man, I'll just be honest, I'd take the money because progress waits for nobody. And sooner or later, the neighbor will.
Look at 146th Street in Ellisville.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whole
That's
different area. Yeah.
crazy. So what other thoughts do you have?
So, and I think you also brought up a really great point, is that the interest rates did keep a lot of people on the sidelines. People that would have probably put their house up for sale to move into something else kind of sat and they waited a little bit. And so new listings coming into marketplace was also down about 18%. So
for the entire 2023
Yeah, for
from
2020.
2022?
Correct.
Well, there's our hurt that we were feeling.
Yeah. And especially December of 23 was a really rough month on the inventory side.
Yeah.
It was down about 30% from the previous month and the previous year.
It felt like it. So
Yeah,
here's my
yeah.
question.
And
How
I think
long-
it's not picking up very good right now in January.
It isn't. I think February we'll see an uptick.
I think March, April, we're still talking about what
it's gonna be
we've been talking
ridiculous.
about. It's
Yeah.
going to be an interesting spring.
Well, and that's so people are, I think, open to leaving that rate now because it started to come
it's
back
coming down a little bit.
And-
2.9 to 8 was scary. I mean,
That's a big jump. That'll get anybody's attention.
but you can only sit in a house with 5 kids and 2 bedrooms, whatever the situation
For
is.
so long.
You can only put up with what you've been putting up with for the past 2 years, waiting to see,
Yeah.
and then you're done. It's
Yeah.
like you said, life goes on, and you have to readjust. If you have the ability to move and you have the monetary, ways to do that,
Right.
you're not going to put up with the pain of being where you are. Mine's to be downsizing, and other people, like you said, if there's a death or divorce or whatever, you have to. But you said the best thing is down 18%. That were the people that were moving because they saw a nicer house or they
Yeah.
saw I've always wanted to be in that neighborhood, just moving cause. And now they're not. That's not what we aren't seeing, moving just because.
Yeah, you know. So what do you think it takes to get out of that hole? Because that's what Shelly and I have been talking about. There will be an uptick. It's not going to fill an 18 or 30% hole, but we have people who will start coming back out because rates went back down.
Yeah, not over 1 year, but yes.
And I'm just like, it scares me because the extra we're going to pick up, I actually feel is like going to be consumed. And so it just puts us
The
in a
inventory.
tight
Well, we
spot.
see
Pace
that.
of
My stats
sales.
today are showing that. So we see that every time we do our 7-day stats. How many came on the market and how many pinned it. It's like, well, they just went right out the window. We're
Oh.
even all the time. Maybe got an extra 2.
I've been negative inventory this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
keep
if
going. You have the wonderful stats that
if we
everybody wants to
extrapolate
know.
that out, right? So middle of November each year, we kind of try to do the best we can to look back on the year, even though we have about 5 weeks left in the year. So we try to project what we think we're going to look like for December. And then we also try to project out what we think the next year is going to be for the next 12 months. Anything past 12 months, you should really just throw darts at a dartboard.
So you
But-
have these stats.
Yeah.
Can I ask you? I can't wait to hear them.
Yeah.
Historically, when you go back and see what did you think was going to happen and what happened, how close have you been?
Except for 21.
You couldn't see that coming?
20 and 21 were really hard.
Right.
22 started to feel more normal. So I started here in 2018. In 2018, 2019, if you were trying to project, you felt like a genius because the market was so stable and predictable and the numbers really worked out super well. 20 and 21 really kind of rocked it. 22, we were much closer. So what I have now today, so we are looking at the base case for 2024 for single family homes sales being up 14% over last year. So if you look at where sales wise we were for 23, it puts us at about 2014, 2015. If you think about years in kind of the marketplaces, those were fine years.
Yeah.
They were fine. The base case puts us at about a 2016. But if rates go lower than what we have kind of built into the model, we're looking at 2017, 2018, which are pretty good years.
They were good years.
Pretty good years.
And that you're saying for 2024.
2024, yeah. So a much improved upon for 23, but still down from what 21 and 22 were. I mean, they're just really different years.
What do you compare 2023 to? Are we looking at 9, 10, 11 or?
23 was closer to 2014.
Okay.
Yeah. Price gets a little tricky, but we are projecting a 1.5 to 2% increase over 23 on an annual basis. That could certainly change, and it's not going to be. It's really going to change depending upon the market that you're in and which part of town that you're in.
Yep.
And that's always true.
But this is for the Indy region, and it could really change too, depending upon how quickly the rates do drop when they drop. I tend to think that there's a natural ceiling that we might be bumping up against in terms of the region. I think there's pockets where you're going to be higher or lower, but on the whole, and if you look at it, so October was kind of the highest in terms of what we had of the interest rates and price points. The interest rates were bumping up against 8, and it became a real challenge to be able to afford homes. So if you look at then what you would need to the income you would need to support a house at that price point and at that rate, then you're looking at about $93,000 is what the income you would need to support the typical house at that interest rate at that time. If you look at the Indy region, the median household income is about $75,000.
That's higher than I thought.
Yeah.
That's gone up significantly.
But you're talking the region, not
Yeah,
Indy.
region. Yeah, the Indy region.
It's
So the
still higher than
metropolitan
I-
area.
I mean, that's above the state average, though.
But you start kind of pricing out people, though. I mean,
Oh,
you really start.
significantly.
Yeah. So you start pricing out chunks of the market, especially
It's like 30% higher.
the entry level buyer.
Yeah.
Well, that's a
people
whole
that- yeah.
nother concern that everybody has
Right.
is, the people that want to buy their first home are being pushed
Priced out.
Yeah. It's
Where
really
are we
tough.
at in comparison to those sister cities? And not that you've done this, and maybe we can do this another time.
I looked a little
Can you
bit.
see?
Where are we at average price point in comparison to them?
We're kind of right there in the mix. So
We're not the highest.
we're not the
lowest?
highest. We're not the
This
lowest.
is exactly where we want to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's
Competitive.
highest?
Columbus was actually a little bit higher for this past year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wonder why. Anyways,
Yeah.
whatever.
What other goodies do you have?
Yeah.
Oh. what
Throw out
else do we
stats
have?
I can argue with.
Throw out stats. So we covered closed sales, we covered price points, new listings, active inventory. We did the forecast.
Let's go into the other part that then, if you're kind of thinking.
Yeah.
Economic development. Is that what we're talking
We
about?
could do that too if you want.
We can do
whichever
that,
one.
but
Yeah.
talking about agents. So
Yeah.
just we have the agents that are having questions of, what's it like right now? Are people
Right.
getting out of the market because it's so bad? So
Yeah.
National Association is saying whatever their percentage is a lot. You're not seeing it here.
We're not seeing.
Well,
it
that's
here.
interesting. I got a thought on that too. So,
Yeah.
new agents don't know what they don't know. I mean, that's just the reality of it. A lot
But
of
old
people,
agents do.
they do. And guess who are the ones who struggle with it? Old agents, right? So, and I don't mean like age. I just mean like somebody who's been doing it longer. there's a lot of talk about, these agents, in the past 2 years or whatever, but they don't know any better. So like, they're just used to like grinding like nobody's business, and like being on the go, where like some tenured agents would like really struggle with that because they had spent a decade trying to establish work-life balance. And so it's just really interesting to see that, because I know we've talked about NAR numbers show that agents is down for the first time in like a very, very long time, but you just said we have not changed. I bet literally in the past 10 days, I've had 4 people asked to be on my team who have no experience in the industry.
And I think too, it gets back to, the rock in the pond,
Yeah.
the analogy. I think you're seeing it in some of the other markets. You've seen price,
won't here.
you've seen price corrections and stuff like that. We've not had that yet. And I think there's a lot of confidence in the marketplace. I think there's a lot of optimism, especially as people are seeing potentially, the rates being cut 3 times at least in 2024, puts us back down by the end of the year to low 6s or 6 or possibly below 6. That's a much more competitive environment.
I wish we could predict that.
Man, I just wish we
know.
could tell people what this job is like. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Best job in the world. Also, nowhere near what anybody
Not
thinks this
easy.
job is.
Not easy
oh
at
my
all.
gosh, it
Yeah.
is.
There's a lot of
man.
emotions going at all times.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
some people don't handle their emotions very well, including all people involved. It's just,
And we have
It's a
to
lot.
absorb all of it.
yeah.
And you
My
have to-
psych degree comes in pretty handy.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of also the role you play is
Yeah.
All kinds.
depending upon the buyer, the seller, the client, where they're at in life. If they're on to house 4 now, they've already had 2 other homes and they've been through the process, or somebody that's just entering into the marketplace, that's a really anxious place to be. And so part of that role that you have is walking them through it, explaining all the unknowns, talking them through the process, and educating them and understanding the marketplace and what the expectations are going to be the real big thing.
We say that all the
to
time,
talk about.
expectations throughout the entire process.
Yeah.
If you don't set your clients up for the expectations of what you're going to expect,
Yep.
then there's going to be butting heads and or concerns or complete chaos.
Yes.
And the thing you just said, though, in regards to the people that have their 5 or 10 houses under their belt,
Yeah.
come to us and say, I know how to do this.
And they know what they want too. Yeah.
But in 21 and 22 and, stuff, when we were telling them they had to go over lists and, escalation clauses and appraisal gaps, they're like, that is not anything I've ever had to do.
Right.
And that was a really hard thing. So it's a constant, like, using your expertise and trying to tell them what needs to be done. And sometimes people aren't adequate enough to say, I'm serious, this is what you have to do, and if you can't do it, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And to be strong enough to really try to help your clients, whereas some of them will just say no and move on to the next agent until they find somebody who will do what they want to do.
Right.
And
And they have a bad experience.
we don't do that.
Yeah.
This is what you need to do, and if you can't do it or don't want to, or you have an idea of what you think should be done,
Then
I might.
patience is what we have to discuss.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
is this
it's
the
just-
timeline?
It's just interesting because people do come at us with experience.
Yeah. So one kind of a quick plug that I do want to make is you all have tools that you can use, and I use these every day. But I think there's some tools that maybe don't get seen that I wish people knew more about.
In Mibor?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
So, Market Insights is a tool that you all have access to. I'm sure you've probably played with it a bit. That tool you can get on and you can slice and dice by county, by community, by township. You can do it by price point, price range, and you can really pull up. You can see a time. You can see all the data through a timeline back to 2016. Really gives a really excellent talking point. Lays out the facts. You can go through closed sales, price points, pendings. You can look through all the inventory stats. The other thing that's in there that I don't think gets used as much and is a really interesting tool, and I think especially the last three years and going into 2024 as the market's going to change again, is a tool called Pricing Insights. And
I have not seen that. Have
and
you?
I think it intimidates people when they open it up because it's a lot of dots and a lot of stuff all at once.
That'll shut me down.
But essentially what it
Dots.
does is,
Can I click in a lot of places?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'll
but
be in there for a day.
when you put in parameters of price and the home size to give you a normalized basket, you can see what has sold the last 3, 6, 9, 12 months, what's active now, and what's pending too. And so once you zero that in and you define the market for your clients, you can say, okay, you think we're here at this price point. Here's 10 other properties. 3 of them just sold within the last 3 months. 3 are active, 4 pending. Where do we think we are when we compare ourselves to these? Are we higher
Good
or
for
lower?
sellers too.
Yes, and it's a really good way to be able to talk to clients and just get the expectations on the same page, where you all really
That we're not
understand
just
what
making
you're-
it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard. So I was having this conversation the other day because somebody was saying, "Oh, I do $100,000 deals and $1 million deals, and I negotiate, so I can do this because I know how to negotiate." What people don't understand about what we do, so I can look at all those numbers, I can convey that to everybody, and I can educate somebody. The hardest part about this buying and selling of this asset that is unlike any other asset that somebody acquires is emotion.
Oh yeah.
And this is not like buying 40 boxes of something, right? And it doesn't matter if you're emotionless in this,
Right.
because if the other person is, it comes into play. Like in like being able to educate to get my people to remove the emotion based off of the data points gets me to a really good place so I can just handle the pop-up emotion. But the other side, then you got to rely on that. So I hope other agents are listening so they can use that stuff, because that tends to be the biggest barrier and hiccup within any transaction is the emotion piece.
Sure.
That's it.
And how it's handled on the other side as
Yeah,
well,
100%.
because you're talking about, we can look at all of these stats.
Not just
Zero-
negative emotion either.
No.
Like, so you got somebody who just like overcommit because they're like, "We love it," and you're like, "Whoa, what are we doing?" It's got mold. Right?
Yeah,
But,
right. But the thing is like we could go into 46033 and we go into like narrow down, and here's where we're going to sell or here's where we're going to buy, and here's the average of everything that's happening. But then we go and make an offer for somebody whose agent or seller is out of their mind in regards to their thoughts or whatever's going on, and you're just like, okay, that all just went out the window. Let's
Yeah.
work with these people right here.
Gotta
And
pivot
you
on
might,
a dime
yeah,
and
and
come up
just
with a new
okay,
strategy.
we have this in front of us now, and this is what we can do.
yeah.
Forget everything I just told you for the past week.
Literally, just yesterday, I was talking to Shelly about it. I sent an offer, and somebody said they were offended by the offer. Like, the idea that, like, I'm sending, like, a numbers-based contract over, and somebody says they're offended by just, like, something sent to you, basically, just shows this emotion piece of, like, what do you mean? Like, just say no? Or
Counter.
like, I
There
don't
are
know,
counters.
like, there's
There are
counters.
counters. And you
Like,
were not that far off.
oh, it wasn't that
like,
big of a deal. But
teeny
yeah,
bit.
like,
But
offended. Like, do you realize you are trying to sell something?
But do
Like,
we understand too, though, that sometimes sellers have been told the market is this?
Yeah,
You're going to
that's
get
fair,
list
yeah.
or above list, and you just came in at where we see the market is at 96 to 97% in offers right now.
Yeah.
You did what you saw
based on the numbers.
on what you knew was happening, and
Yeah.
maybe they had different information in front of them, and that's where I'm saying you never know what you're going to run into when you
Yeah.
finally find the house.
I
So-
love it. I love it.
And
Anyways,
so on the other half of that plug too is I'm always open to coming out to offices to meet up for coffee, to meet with teams or whatnot, and walk through all the stats, walk through all the data tools that you have, walk through problems, questions that you might have, and spend whatever time that you want, kind of walking through them and just
That
being able
may
to
have
tell a
just
story.
opened a Pandora's box.
That's
for
okay.
you.
That's why I'm here.
we will be giving his phone number out at the end. But I mean, you got to think a lot of our listeners are agents. We obviously we have a bunch of consumers on here and clients, et cetera, friends, family, whatever. Hi, Mom. But anyways, we want agents to, I don't want to say improve because that's not a fair word, sharpen their skill set. I think it makes the consumer feel better. I think, rising tide lifts all ships. And I think historically we have done a disservice to ourselves as an industry of the public perception of this industry. I just think that's the reality of it. It's, my buddy gets on me about it a lot, and, we get a lot of people who ask us to be in this industry. So do you. And it's hard because people, they think it's just like fun and easy.
Well, I was
And
going to say
it's
the
like-
reasoning a lot of times when you ask, why do you want to join? It's like, who told you that?
Yeah, they're like money, and I'm like, when? But you know,
time to yourself whenever you want.
but you and I are, like, you know, we spend a lot of time, like, you know, working on our trade craft, you know, and we make it look fun and easy. And so it looks very desirable. And I can assure you, it is fun. It is far from easy. And the stuff that Shelly and I deal with on a regular basis and vent about is not. And I want people to understand that, but to a certain extent, like, even that perception slightly hurts what, you know, people think of, like, how hard, you know, I work 80 hours a week, you know,
Right.
This is not like a 2-hour a day
The
job.
thing about what you're saying, though, too, is to know that why it can be so difficult for us is because you and I are so passionate about
Yeah.
helping our clients
Yeah.
to the absolute best we can.
I guess
And
you
so
just
we
don't care.
dig our, you know, whatever we need to do, whatever we need to find out, whatever
Yeah.
we need to make sure happens. Otherwise, you can just sit back and let it ride however it's going to ride. That's not best interest for your client, and that might be easier for you.
But if they use, so we do all this digging on our own. If they use the resources that Brad's talking about, they can get the same results with less effort than what you and I are doing on our end, because
Yeah.
you've made it user friendly for people to jump into it and kind of figure this stuff out. So I hope people use that. There is so many resources through Mibor that people just don't know, and it's hard because there's just so much information. It's like, how do you know it all? You don't know until you found out you needed it, or it's like, I don't want to say too late, but like you find out on a whim or something like that.
What are some of the classes that, you know, I know you do classes for people just joining. Are there any classes that you would recommend for agents currently in the market that have been in the market for a while, refreshers or good ideas to just come in and learn more about? Because it is a new system.
Yes. So there is training going on for that. Two of the other things that I would also plug, and I think you both have been through at least one of them, but Reel.
Yes.
Reel's amazing.
So I don't know if you guys have a quick plug for Reel.
Reel's amazing. It opened
It's
my eyes to the
unbelievable.
industry
Yeah.
of what all that is done within our industry, like not just the economic development, grievances, the political system within it, you know, of candidates coming to Mibor. It's just all of it. It's just a way
And that is
bigger
a
structure
nomination,
than I
and
understood.
you know, you have
You
to be
have to apply
chosen.
for
There's
that,
only
yeah.
only 18 seats,
Yeah.
roughly 18 seats for that. So that's
And the Impro
Impro,
program
yeah.
is also a
Impro.
really
I've
good
done
one as
that,
well.
and C2EX. So getting those designations and
Yeah.
stuff, but fair housing. There's a lot of different designations and things you teach. None of that hurts you to learn.
No.
And I kind of wonder too, with 2020 and 2021 and the first half of 22, just the pace of
hard.
the industry was really hard, and
No extra
it
time.
didn't leave a lot of extra time to go kind of hone skills and sharpen and learn new things. And that was one of the things on the back half of 22 where, like, 23 is probably going to be a slower year. Interest rates are going up. It's going to really kind of slow things down a little bit. Really great time to work on your plans, the marketing, reconnecting with past clients, reconnecting with people that you work with in the industry. Like, you know, 23 was a good year. 24 as well. It's going to be busier, but I think it's also going to be a great year to really kind of hone all those skills
Well,
that are out
if
there.
you have any downtime, I always like some of the stuff when I teach classes or whatever to newer agents is this is a business. And so if you're sitting at home and the phone's not ringing and nothing is going on and you just start watching TV, you do that day after day because nothing's going on. Well, then it's going to get a longer time that nothing's going on.
Yeah.
So spend the days that you have a quieter time figuring out how to make your business grow or, learn something. Don't just sit. And I learned that when I started in 2008, all the agents around me that had been around forever, they're like, I don't know what to do. I was training like crazy. I was going to every training class there was and learning because there wasn't a lot to do. So I thought I can just learn.
Sure.
So anything last minute words you have for this?
Any last minute things? 24 is going to be better. The first quarter, I think, is going to be tricky to navigate, especially on the expectation side, just because I think the rates are going to bounce around. I think there's going to be a continued fight between the Wall Street and Fed on where they think rates should be. I think there's going to be 3 cuts, 25 basis points. If we get more, great. Hopefully not too many more because then something bad's happened. But
Yeah.
It's either we're like 5.9.
So then we're sitting about 5.9. Yeah.
that's
So
what I
by the end of the year, then we're
And
getting
that
under
sounds so
6.
good.
Yeah. And then maybe
It's a much better place. at
in the
least.
next 18 months after that, 5.25, and I think we're there for a very long
Yeah.
time.
It's reasonable.
That's personally what I think, based
Yep.
off of just feel, no
So,
data.
but I think getting through, quarter one and just
Yeah.
kind of figuring out where things are gonna.
Well, quarter one has to do with our weather as well.
It does a little
That
bit,
doesn't
but there's a lot of
help.
expectations that are kind of floating around too. And as you talked about, if you go on Twitter or whatever else, and you just see where things are going and the stories and the narratives and stuff, I think there's going to be a lot of noise that I think we're gonna.
Yeah.
That we're
And that's
gonna
where you
cut.
talk about past clients, getting out there and talking to your past clients and telling them what you do know
Yes.
compared to what they're hearing.
Correct.
And just helping them navigate through what their potential is for selling or buying at this time.
I think this will be like 2021, where there will be a 2-week notice of how quickly the market pivoted, and then it will be intense again. And it will probably happen somewhere between the 3rd week of March to the 1st week of April, maybe even a week earlier than that, because like when people know that, like, it just happens a week earlier. And then I think it's going to be chaos
gonna be
until
off and running.
August. Yeah.
Well, when we talk about that, when was the best time to buy? Yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And you see historic, you do it all the time, historic stats. When was the best time to buy? It keeps going behind us
Right.
as the rates and the prices and everything. As we move forward, you're just going to pay more or, have more complications in the purchase, which is no
May 5th
ability.
of next year, it's the best time to buy. Like, nobody's ever said that.
Gonna pin that one, huh?
Oh, man.
All right, well, let's
thank
do
you for
our
having us on.
stats. Yeah,
Or
we'll-
Thank you very
coming
much.
on. I
We'll give
Appreciate
you
it.
our information out at the end, and we'll talk about our stats that we saw in the past 7 days as we are continuing
You
into
wanna go?
2020.
Mine are pretty simple. I know
Go
that
for
you
it.
got some diversity in yours. So for Fishers, we had 22 go on the market, anywhere from 199 to 765. 11 of them are still active, so 11 pinned, but that's just 11 pinned that went on the market within a week. I actually had 24 pinned, so I had -2 inventory. We're down to 112 houses on the market in Fishers. Days on market went down. I saw something from July pinned, but there was a lot that pinned within a week. I was surprised that it was 11. Median is 6 days on market right now because a lot of the new stuff's getting ate up really, really quick. And then Noblesville, there was a house for 115. I thought that was really reassuring to see some houses that are affordable. And all the way up to 950, 14 went on the market. Only 2 of those pinned within a week, but 25 actually
Oh,
pinned.
negative, yeah.
Huge negative inventory, which takes us down to like 107 on market. Their days on market is higher. It's 44 and the median 17. But even like when we were out last week, right? But 2 weeks ago, because so much of the stagnant inventory was starting to get picked up, we were average days on market around 58 for both of them. And both of those have gone. Fishers was almost cut in half, and Noblesville is down by probably 40%, 30%, something like that. So it's trending the way it should trend as we start to head towards the spring market.
Getting out of the holidays.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yours was way different. I know, like, you had a lot of diversity swinging from Westfield to Zionsville.
Yeah, so in Carmel, 23 hit the market. So 10 of those of the 20 of the ones that went active pended. So 50% pended. Days on market for those 7 days was 33, and then average was 33. Median was 7. Active currently 98 are active, so we're down on inventory in Carmel, which we're normally seeing like 150. Of those 98, 26 are new builds. And the other interesting thing I saw was the average sale price of those 26 new builds is $944,000 in Carmel.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The average price of all the new builds on the market currently is $944,000.
For the average new construction in Carmel?
Yeah. So if you want to build,
Yeah.
but that's average. There's some lower, but
Yeah,
anyway.
That's still a high average.
Yes. Well, wait till you hear Zionsville's. Sold, 72 sold in the past 30 days. List to sale ratio was 97%, which is where we get to the making offers today. Days on market 36, and average being median was 18. So we're coming down on days on market for what we saw the first 3 weeks. Westfield, 34 hit the market, only 3 pended there. And their average days on market was 45 and median 18 of those 3 that pended. In active, there's 172, only 60 are resales. There's 112 new builds. The Average days on market right now with all those actives in Westfield is 90 and the median 70, just sitting there still. So that's because there's so many new builds, but their average new build price is 580. So you can get into Westfield a little cheaper for your new builds. There are 80 sold in the past 30 days, 98% list to sale ratio. Average days on market 33 and median 15. So we're coming down on days on market in Westfield. Zionsville, 4 hit the market, 3 of those pended, and days on market average was 3. Then active, there's 43 in the market, 50% are new builds. Average sale price there, $1.6 million of the new builds.
In Zionsville?
In Zionsville. So in Carmel and Zionsville, if you want to do a new build, the averages are showing very high numbers. You can still do lower, but that's the average. Sold in Zionsville past 30 days, only 16. They had a listed sale ratio also of 97%. Average days on market 60, median 44. So they're still saying high. Even with their low inventory, their average days on market are higher.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
When
that's
the
a
reason I
question.
brought that up was because I just happened to see the prices and I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I'm like, let me do the average. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
I mean, you got Holiday and Promontory over there.
That's what it's all
Yeah.
those neighborhoods
Yeah.
and Chatham Hills and stuff. And so it's,
That's Westfield, right? But, I was looking back while you were talking because I was being disrespectful. But we haven't had a single digit median since like October.
yeah.
So, in both of ours. I mean, Noblesville was 17, but it's gone down, from 50 to 17. So it's going to trend that way. So,
Yeah. Well, Carmel's went to 7 and
That's
then
so
Zionsville's went to 2 for the
2.
medium.
That's crazy.
That's just the last 7 days. So, but there's no inventory in Zionsville, so that they'll just eat up right when they come on the market.
Yeah, that's insane. Zionsville's always been different for us when we do the numbers.
Yeah.
It's always low inventory and it sells quick. People move there and they don't ever want to leave. So,
It's a cute little town. I grew up there.
I don't know. We'll do. We got some more people coming on. We have next week.
Sue Thinkum on next
That's
week.
right.
Yeah. So
That's
we're going
right.
to hear her ideas of the housing in here in Carmel, because I know there's kind
Yeah.
of a little bit of discrepancy on what people think should be doing or has been done and what should be happening. And she has some stuff to talk about with that.
That'll be awesome. So, and then we have hopefully some other city officials coming on and some other, I don't want to say vendors, I would say subject matter experts, I guess is a better word to kind of educate people.
Yeah,
So-
and maybe some of the superintendents or somebody to do with the schools. Just kind of want to talk about all this growth in Westfield, Fishers, Carmel, Westfield, any of the, well, I think I said twice, but just
know
kind
what?
of see what the school systems think.
You want to know who I want to talk to? The person who's in charge of the salt trucks in Hancock County.
Hancock
And I want to know when he got the phone call that the schools weren't going to be closed, because this is a whole thing for me. I thought they were going to cancel school today, and it was just rain. I swear every news agency told me I was about to get a half-inch of ice. And
Don't you want that job? I mean, who doesn't want that job?
yeah, dude,
I heard that. Man.
he's
Everybody
not getting
wants
fired
that
for
job.
that either.
No, you can just go on the news, say the weather, what you think's going to happen, and the next day it doesn't happen. They have a job, and they just keep going.
Yeah,
It doesn't
that's
matter.
amazing. That's amazing.
So yeah, I know a lot of people were talking about being petrified or didn't do things last night because it was going to ice, and here we are.
Just sitting with rain. Sweet. Anyways, thanks for coming on, Brad. I mean, we've had you on before. I think we'd probably like to have you on more often, quite honestly. I just think you bring a ton of value and you give broader. I mean, we're really good at our little micro data points, but I think without the macro, it's kind of hard to understand and disseminate some of this stuff in larger trends. So, I can sit here and talk about trends on this, but if you don't understand trends on a little bit bigger level for the metro area, and then even like we had Fisher on, right, to talk about state level stuff. So we're trying to do that a little bit better so people understand like how all these things are intertwined and they don't think it's just like,
And then we're not making it up.
yeah, well, somebody will be like, Carmel just trying to raise taxes. Like, this is like a much bigger thing than that, for the record. Like, this is a larger macroeconomic thing that then just,
Which we started
Yeah.
to talk about the economic development and all
Yeah.
that stuff. That's a whole nother
it's a whole nother.
podcast that we could
Yeah.
get into. And you said you would be willing to help with other people who might have questions or sit down
Yeah.
with them. So
Yeah.
how can they get a hold of you?
Easiest way is Brad Coffing, COFFING, at Mibor.com.
And your phone number? Do you want to give that out? Nope.
I don't answer the phone very often.
There you go.
but
What's your Twitter handle?
Email is the easiest.
Yep, there you go. So Brad
Yeah.
Coffing at mybor.com.
Yeah.
I'm Kyle Morris with Morris Property Group and FC Tucker. My number is 317-649-5122.
I'm Shelly Walters with FC Tucker and Shelly Walters Realty Group. My cell phone's 317-201-2601. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or things you'd like us to cover, just let us know, and we'll make sure we find the person to answer those questions.
One more thing. Happy birthday, Shelly. Everybody
you.
blow her up and call her at 2 a.m. and wish her a happy birthday.
My phone's on. Thank you.